All right, everyone, welcome back to Move Philadelphia. I'm your host, Dr. John Herding, and today it's my absolute pleasure to interview the Rob Robena. Welcome, Rob.
John, thanks for having me on. This is fun.
Absolutely. It's always fun with you, Rob.
Always good.
Yeah. So, Rob, we're going to get right into it because rather than me introducing you, I think nobody can introduce you like you can introduce yourself. Can you give us a quick bio of kind of, just your history, how you became interested in fitness, how you ended up where you are? Give people some insight into how you got to where you are right now.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start from the beginning. So I went to Cabrini College for undergrad in exercise science. While I was there, I did an internship at Villanova to get a college strength and conditioning experience, did an internship at just a local commercial gym, filling smoothies, checking people in, doing a little bit of personal training, doing some group fitness. And then I went to East Stroudsburg for my master's degree in kinesiology. And there I trained the baseball, softball teams, did some research on the baseball team there entitled The Effects of Interval Training and Long Distance Running on Pitching Performance. And that research was recently published in 2019. So that was fun. And after there, I interned at Cressy Performance in Boston, which was a great experience. And I came back home and had a few jobs, part-time jobs, doing figure skating, ice hockey. I worked at a college, so I had a couple part-time jobs kind of getting started. And then I started working at MSI, which is now Ascent, about 7-8 years ago as the director of performance. And here we train lots of baseball players. We're probably 90, 85% baseball players from all different levels, ranges, skill levels to, from the youth ages, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 to, college, professional, and lots of big leaguers. So, that's kind of what I do currently is train lots of baseball players to improve their on-field performance. I coordinate a lot with physical therapists, pitching coaches, hitting coaches in here in our building, and then, with professional teams, colleges, high school. So, kind of being that quarterback role and making sure, players are feeling good, staying healthy, and performing well in the field. So it's a, fun job. That's kind of what I do now. And then I also do some teaching at Widener University with their PT students. I also teach at Cabrini in the exercise science department for undergrads. And I also do some fitness consulting for a company called Altus. So, kind of doing a little bit of everything, but as a coach, you still have your bread and butter, which is, coaching, assessing athletes, writing programs, and, kind of getting people better every day.
Love it, Rob. And that's something very interesting with, as I've watched you grow and develop and find your path. I think it's very cool to see you've now worked yourself into these teaching positions, not only in like an exercise science program for undergrads, but also now you're helping to teach future physical therapy students, which is something that, to my knowledge, not many strength coaches are doing. But anyone who knows me knows how I feel about the continuum of movement and how strength coaches and PT should coordinate, and how strength coaches have a wealth of knowledge that they can share with physical therapy students. So can you tell us a little bit about that experience and how you teaching both undergraduates and graduate school students, maybe how you found yourself in those positions, and then what it's meant for you to kind of educate the next up and coming movement professionals?
Yeah. So one of the reasons why I went to grad school was I kind of always had an interest in like the teaching component, the education component. So that was like one driver for me to go to grad school, was like eventually down the road get into some teaching as like some adjunct. So, finally able to have that opportunity, which is awesome. So teaching DPT students at first, as a strength coach who is, obviously like not on the same level from an educational standpoint as PT students are when it comes to just anatomy, diagnosis, all that fun stuff that you get in PT school. I was slightly nervous / skeptical how students would first perceive me. But I think once they, hear me talk about training, exercise, rehab, strength and conditioning, and they hear the passion that I bring, the knowledge that I bring, the abilities that I can help teach them when it comes to exercise, movement, everyone bought in very, very quickly. So that was fun, just to like have a group of students that were all in and eager to learn every day, some with all different backgrounds. So like I had PT students that have never licked a personal training client ever. They just like have never done it. And I've had some that have done personal training for 2 to 3 years. So to see that gap and like those that were training and those that aren't, especially if you want to get into like, PT and work with athletes, was a huge gap that I tried to close with those students. So I think just like another thing with the PT students, like, always relating it back to the rehab setting, because that's where they're going to be working. Some of them might be like in a strength coachy type role, but most of them are going to be like in a PT clinic treating injured people, injured athletes. So like always relating and talking about movement, exercise, strength programs in conjunction with a rehab program and getting people out of pain, feeling better. I think I learned that quickly was like the best way to help educate them.
Yep. And then how does that differ from the education that you're giving the undergrad students as well? Are you finding similarities, or is there definitely?
Yeah. The undergrad students is a lot different, a lot. I'm not going to say like easier to teach, but they're not third year PT students. They're still learning like, how to structure an exercise program. The class I teach is exercise testing and prescription. So, we're going over like how to assess people, how to write programs. So, realizing that like most of these students like don't really know. And it's like my job to like make them know how to test people and write programs. So it's kind of just like coming back to the basic foundational principles of exercise, assessing, training, and then like writing programs. So, it's a lot different than the PT students, which is like way more technical, a little bit more in depth. Whereas the undergrad, it's like broad strokes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So just to take us back a little bit, because we had to take that path after you mentioned some of the teaching, but what initially got you into being interested in a possible exercise science and then kinesiology degree? What did you have an athletic background? Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about what made you become an exercise science major versus maybe like a business major.
Yeah. So I was, I grew up doing construction my entire life. My dad, brother, uncles, cousins, they've all worked construction. So it made sense for me to do construction, but I wasn't good at it. So, I got to college, I was undecided. I'm like, okay, like maybe I'll do some of the business stuff of the construction business and, craft out a job somewhere in that market. And then I was unable to get into business classes my spring semester. So I like stumbled into like an exercise science class, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. Like this is way more interesting than anything I've been learning. The professor was fantastic. And, that really kind of sparked the fire for me into like learning more about what this major field can offer. And that's where I found like the training end of it, healthy individuals, the strength and conditioning component, the athletes. I was like an average athlete in high school, but I still loved like being active, exercising, sports. So I was like, this is a great fit for me, and kind of rest is history.
I love that. And then, so now you said you train a lot of baseball players. Why? Like, how did you get into that niche? Like you said, you trained with Presti. I'm sure that had a big part of it. Yeah. How did you find that was it through grad school when you were working the baseball team that you said you wanted, or where you decided you want to fill that niche? And then how did you work yourself into this role as now playing quarterback? And I want to get into how you play quarterback too, but this role of really finding and specializing this niche that, not many people have. Like a lot of people say they want to work with athletes or they want to work with Gen Pop, but you've narrowed it down into, I want to work with athletes and in the performance side, and then specifically baseball players. And now you've become a leader in the field. How did you find your specific spot just to help guide some younger strength coaches that may be coming up?
No, great question, John. I think this is fun. So when I went to grad school, I'll never forget my grad school mentor. Like first week, we had weekly meetings and we sat down. She's like, what do you want to do? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I want to do strength and conditioning. She's like, no, too broad. She's like, let's get specific. What sport, population, setting do you see yourself doing? I'm like, I like baseball. I like this guy, Eric Cressy trains all these baseball players. I'm like, that's what I want to do. Mm-hmm. And she's like, all right, done. You're doing baseball, everything from your internship, your research, and your GA stuff. I'm like, I'm in. Let's do it. So from then on, it was like your research is going to be on baseball, your internship is going to be at baseball, and you're going to train baseball and softball. So that way your resume is fit to train baseball players. Because at grad school, you want to, like we talked about earlier, like the undergrad experience is like broad strokes, and then like grad school is like a little bit more narrow, and you want to try to be good at something, So I was pretty good at a lot of things. Like I said, like as an undergrad, I was doing personal training, group fitness, and I did strength and conditioning, working with all different types of athletes. So I worked in 2 different settings with a bunch of different people. So I had that experience, But then grad school was about, getting good at something. So like I wanted to be good at training baseball players. So I read every single research article you can about baseball conditioning, continued to read articles online, YouTube videos, continue to train baseball teams, hands-on experience, and then get an internship at Cressy, kind of like cap that off. So, that was kind of like how I started off to like develop a niche, but I didn't start there. I had to start in the broad strokes to like figure out what I liked, what I didn't like, what setting I was good at and what setting I wasn't good in, and then once I started with the baseball, I really enjoyed it, and I wanted to stay with it. Whether it was find a college that had a good baseball team, whether it was at an academy setting that I'm in now. So that's kind of, what I do and how I got started in that like baseball niche. And then it's just about, providing that baseball culture that's different than every other gym that you go to. Having a good culture of, for baseball players to feel, comfortable, and they just feel ready to train hard in and have a good time. Recipe for success.
I think that's huge. We talked with Devin Gage a couple episodes about really finding your niche and then dialing that in and stop trying to be a generalist and just become the expert in the area on that. And I think you've done a really good job at that, on where people are flying in from all over the country to train in this culture that you talk about. And the facility definitely helps because you have this expansive facility where guys can throw 100 feet inside. But it's great to see that you now have people flying in even for an assessment from Texas, from the Midwest. They're driving a couple hours just to train for a day and get assessed. Like you've really built this reputation where guys are coming in from all over the place. And like we said when you were prepping for I think you're a diamond in the rough in the Philly area that is starting to gain some traction. But you guys are doing great stuff. And along those lines, you talked about a little bit about how you're now quarterbacking the skill, the sport specific skill team. Like in the facility, you have PT, you have pitching coaches, throwing coaches, you have hitting coaches. But so you said, are you kind of also playing quarterback to make sure all of these different individuals work together as a team in the best interest of the athlete? Tell us about the kind of system that you've created for your athletes, if an athlete wants to come in and train with you, and then a little bit about your role of how you're coordinating these efforts between all the different disciplines, to create the holistic program that you're giving to your athletes.
Yep. My job is to make baseball players better at what they do on the field. Like that's what I do in a nutshell. Like, so however we get there, it doesn't really matter. Like, I want players throwing harder, their baseball's moving more, they're swinging the bat harder, they're hitting the ball further, they're hitting home runs, they're stealing more bases. Like that is my job. Like strength and conditioning is a tool to aid in that process. So if a player is, not throwing harder or, isn't swinging harder or isn't hitting the ball further, then we have to figure out why. Is it their strength and conditioning program? Is it a lack of mobility? Is it their training consistency? Is it a throwing program? Is it their hitting program? So myself, the hitting coordinator and the pitching coordinator here, and Troy, the PT, is we're all on the same team to help players improve their on-field performance. So, when in the winter, when we have 150 athletes in here that we're training to scale, we have to make sure that, players are getting better. So, if that's retesting, like at the end of the day, John, like I don't really care if their broad jump went up 3 inches or not. Like that's easy to do. Like I can add weight and get people stronger. That's easy to do. What's really hard is to gain 3 miles an hour when you're throwing 86. You know, that takes a village. That takes a team. And that's why I have great people around me to get people better. And if there's just like myself, everyone kind of working together, communicating together about a player, about, the system, about a player's getting worse, not getting better, so that's where like I rely on the baseball coaches to tell me, it's like, hey, Johnny is really killing it. Like, how's he doing in the gym? He's killing it. Great. Or, we got, Tommy, he's not doing well and he's getting worse. Like, what's going on? It's like, well, we're really working through some things. His mobility, his strength, his training consistency. He's only been in twice a week. Like, we have to talk to him. And that's player development. And that's just getting people better. So, I think if we can, work together as a team, get people better. And if I can be kind of the steer of the ship, because, the coaches rely on my assessment process to like give them information about the player. So if I can, educate the baseball staff on, hey, this guy is, he's super explosive, but he's like really, really loose. That's going to really make the coaches do their job better. Likewise, if I can say, oh, this guy's got really tight shoulders, George, like we got to hold back on like some of his higher intensity throwing till we were able to regain some range of motion and some strength in those ranges. And then we can start to improve his throwing. Right. So like, it's just like giving these coaches information, data to make their programs better. So, that's kind of like day in the life, Rob Robena.
And how long, it sounds like you guys keep great coordination and communication between the different disciplines. How have you guys been able to foster that over the 7 to 8 years? Has it been a learning curve in the development of the open lines of communications? And I'm familiar with how openly everybody communicates. How did that go initially? Was it well perceived when you came in trying to, coordinate this effort, or was there a little bit of kickback and, some egos get involved as people thought they had a bigger place in the development of the player as more than others?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, the baseball training model was way different than what it is now. So even just that, dealing with that was very difficult, where I was doing semi-private training with an eval and customized programs, and, baseball kids were coming here once, twice a week for a half hour. And it was just like the training model was way different. Whereas now everything is integrated. A player walks in these doors, they get a sports performance assessment, a throwing assessment, a hitting assessment, a plan laid out. They know where they stand compared to other players. We provide them our recommendations as far as days a week, what we expect from them. We tell them what we expect out of them over the next 12 weeks, whatever it might be, to get to where they want to get to. So it's, it started off like, two separate things, and now it's as integrated as possible. And it's better for the players because this is how it's supposed to be done. Baseball is such an individualized sport. Not all pitchers are the same. Not all, outfielders are the same. Not all kids the same age are the same. So we provide a very customized, unique, evaluation, training experience, culture, and players like it and they get better.
And that's one of the things I wanted to get into is kind of the training model that you're using and what makes you guys different. And you got into it a little bit there, but what makes you guys different as far as the baseball training model, and why are people coming to see you guys versus, whoever else has a tunnel in their backyard?
Right. Yeah, I think, our model, like I said, is a player walks in the door, they sit down and they get a 2.5 hour evaluation of throwing, hitting, and their body. There's not a lot of places that are doing that, to my knowledge. So just in of itself, the eval process, the data that we provide them during the eval process is rare. So that's valuable for a lot of players that are really stuck or really plateaued. So if you're a player and you're like, I've been throwing 85 for 2 years and I'm not getting any better, like, let's figure out why. What's going on? What are we doing wrong? How can we change things? So that evaluation is important. And then after that, it's about just coming in and training hard, and training hard consistently over time. It's a lot. It's really easy to get someone from 80 to 85. it's a lot harder to get someone from 90 to 95.
Mhm.
So, that disparity in miles per hour is very hard to do. So, like I said, it takes a great collaboration between a skill coach, a physical therapist, and a strength coach working together to improve the outcomes of the player. Whereas if like a player was coming to see me and then they were going somewhere else for rehab and then they were going somewhere else to do throwing, it's like there could be something's lost along the way for that player. Where it's like, I don't know what his throwing is. I don't know how he looks when he does his throwing because he doesn't throw here. That doesn't exist anymore. Like everyone that comes here does this program, and this program is very successful.
So a common theme that's kind of come up in some of the other podcasts is consistency and making sure, you and I both know that when you keep it simple and really the goal to progressing is making sure you're consistent in the weight room, right? And things kind of fall into place. How do you manage as, it might take 6 months to get that extra 3 miles an hour? You said it a couple of times. It takes, it's easy to get up to 80 miles an hour, but to get to from 80 to 83 or 90 to 95 is much harder. So how do you get the buy? They're only seeing these small metrics and progression, but it might take 6 months to gain 3 miles an hour. How are you keeping them engaged? Right. How are you making sure they buy into the process of, understanding these are the steps to get there, but when it's the changes, manage that buy-in?
Yeah. So getting that buy-in is interesting. I think we first get it when, like the player knows that, we're on their team, like we're part of their team and they're here doing their training program. Like they're not here doing Rob Robena's program. Like obviously I'm typing programs, but like at the end of the day, it's like their program and like they have specific goals and what they want to accomplish. That's like one of the first questions that I ask someone when they come in. It's like, why did you just walk in here? To see me, to see us, to see our team. Like, what are your goals? So like once we hear their goals, we can then establish like a way to get to that goal, a plan, a roadmap, a training program, So it first starts with that. And then I think it's just the culture kind of keeps them engaged where they see their peers or their teammates or a friend of theirs training harder, if not just as hard as them, to get their goal. So like when you see that, it's like, oh man, my buddies just did 55, like I'm going to do 55. So like having that culture of like everyone training hard, but at the same time everyone pushing one another. When there's velocity pens or pull downs in the winter here, John, it's super electric.
Yeah.
Where guys are super hyped and yelling and everyone just wants everyone to be successful, which is really fun to be a part of. And when you have that, you get that buy-in, you get that long-term success where, in 6 months, you're going to see the results that you want. And I'm not here saying like we guarantee results. Like it's not what training is. There's going to be bumps and bruises along the way for everybody. No one's invincible. We don't claim to like, we give you 6 miles an hour. Like, sometimes you do stale and we have to reevaluate. And, just having that open line of communication, having that rapport built with your athletes and clients really helps you break through those speed bumps that might happen along the way.
Yeah, I think that's huge. The culture has been a common theme as well in this, where I've been in the facility when you've had the live pens before guys go to spring training, and it's electric. Like the music's pumping, the guys are getting after it a little bit, like they're ribbing each other, but then they're also happy for, guys from other teams when they, strike someone out or get a hit. And even with some of the middle school and high school kids, when the culture you guys have created is, if you have a bunch of kids come in from Malvern Prep and there's a team, they're training next to someone from St. Joe's Prep and they become friends and they become part of the same community where they're, even though like they're on competing high schools, they're still rooting for people when they're throwing against the gun to throw faster or to pull down to be harder, or it's this culture of we want everyone to do better. But then when we go on the field and we're competing for different teams, like we'll get after each other a little bit, but it has been cool to see the culture that you guys have created. And I think that's really what's driven the buy-in into what you guys are doing. Right.
No doubt.
I think it's great.
No doubt, Tom.
I also think part of that too is you guys make an honest effort to make sure you're getting to games in the spring.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I
like
mean,
kids have your cell phone number. You're getting to games in the spring to make sure you're showing support. It's not just, oh, it's spring season, you're not coming in as much, we'll forget about you until off season. You and each of the skill coaches that I know are making an honest effort to get to games as well.
yeah, because John, like we've had multiple kids drive 45 minutes 3 to 4 times a week.
Yeah.
Like that's a commitment. And it's like, if I can't commit to go to one of their games, it's like that's bad. That's not good. Like, you don't really care about your athletes if you can't make that one drive for 45 minutes to go watch your player play. Like,
right.
That's not good. Like, all coaches should be going to watch their players because you care about your players.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't care about your players, then you're in the wrong field.
Absolutely. So let's go down that path a little bit. Like the relationships that you're forming, so that helps to breed culture. How much do you think that plays in a role into, what you've been able to create and how you've been able to continue to grow the business, and how does the relationship building, and how do you go about doing that? Is it just right away you see if you click with somebody, or do you have a step-by-step process that you're kind of taking into building the relationships with your clients?
Yeah. I mean, I think it obviously like starts with the eval. That's where like people make up their minds about you the first like 10, 15 seconds that they sit down with you. Mm-hmm. So, having that great first impression on this person really goes a long way in building long-term success. And then it's just like, when they come into the gym, like say hi to them, talk to them, be nice to them, like really basic concepts, basic people skills, to really show them that you care about them and you do care about them and you want them to get better, and they need to know that you care about them or they're not going to come in. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, John, like they might come here for our training programs, but they're going to stay here because our staff's really good and we care about people that come in. You know what I mean? Like the rapport that is built is what maintains the clients. And then that rapport, when you find out that your buddy is going to a baseball academy 3-4 days a week and he stops hanging out with you, it's like, you're going to ask, like, where are you going 3 to 4 times a week for 2 hours? Mm-hmm. I don't want to do that. Like, can I come? He's like, yeah, they're great. You should definitely come. I'll get you set up. No problem. Come in with me one day, like, or whatever. And that kind of builds that business from referrals. Mm-hmm. And the training in the exercise business, as you know, is a lot of referral based, because most people like to talk about what got them better, or they like to talk about something good in their life. Mm-hmm. So we can provide that good or that happy time, or a time where they can, be a kid and have a good time. Like, great, let's provide that. And you provide a great training program to boot. Like, that's the recipe for success.
Yeah, I think if you can just make it a point to be the best part of someone's day every day, I think it's going to go a long way in forming those relationships and building the rapport.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we've talked a lot about, or we've mentioned the pro guys that you see, where you see a ton of pro athletes. They're flying from all over, but I wouldn't say that that's necessarily your area of expertise. I think, why don't you just tell everyone the main population of clients that you're training? It's not necessarily the pro athletes, even though you train a lot of them.
Right. Yeah. I think just like, I threw out a number like 150 clients, out of that 150, we had 30 professional players in every day this past winter, so that only makes up a small chunk of that, right? Right. The rest of the 120 athletes were high school athletes, probably, I don't know, say 80 of them were high school, and then the rest were middle school youth athletes. So our main market is high school baseball players, college baseball players. They only really train for 2 to 4 weeks in the month of December, and maybe over the summer, depending if they're playing summer baseball or not. That's it. The rest of the time, college athletes are out at school, so the professional athletes are only here from, October, November, December, January. They're only here for, maybe 16 weeks or so, 18 weeks. So, that's not that long either. Whereas high school athletes are going to be here all summer, all fall, all winter, sporadically throughout the spring. So our main market, from a business standpoint, is definitely our high school athletes, and creating, like I said earlier, like just that environment where high school athletes can wear tank tops, flex in the mirror in the gym, lift some weights, and get better at their sport. It's just a really fun thing to be a part of.
So philosophy around training those high school athletes, then, if it's your main population, because a lot of these kids have a low training age, which means they're just learning how to lift weights. And I think I've heard you say before, and correct me if I'm wrong, where you don't really, I don't know, you tell me, but you're not really an expert at training until you've 10 years in the gym and under the bar.
Yeah.
So tell me about your philosophy with training these kids that are just getting into training. They're seeing, they're going through puberty. They're, give me a little bit of that insight.
Right. Yeah. So the high school athlete is a unique athlete where, they might even play 2-3 sports. So you have to consider the other sports that they play if they're playing other sports besides baseball. But yeah, John, you hit the nail on the head. Like, if a 14, 15-year-old athlete comes in, they're a freshman in high school. They maybe have done some weight training with like a sibling or a parent, come to the gym with me. It's good. And they come and they hate it and they don't listen to whoever they're going with, So it's a, we have to like create that, place where a high school athlete like isn't one like, scared of a gym, isn't scared of a strength coach. Like, people have like stigmas of like strength coaches with, they just yell at kids all day and, they have whistles and they just like do all that stuff. And it's like, no, that's not what it is. So like people have that, like, thanks to like movies, TVs, like that's what people think strength coaches are, so create, breaking that barrier and showing people that like, hey, like, this is great training. We provide a great environment with a great service where a parent feels comfortable, just like drop their kid off is cool. So, getting that athlete first comfortable is really important to me. Mm-hmm. Secondly, just creating a good, kind of base for them where we would do all different types of movements. At the end of the day, John, we just need to build a better athlete. So getting them sprinting faster, jumping higher, throwing med balls, improving their strength, their power, upper body, lower body, bilateral training, single leg training, doing a lot of different things, getting good at as many different things as possible is kind of how I like to start kids. At the same time, I'm not just saying like, hey, let's do a different program or different, exercise session every time they come in. Like, there is a plan. They do it for 4 to 5 weeks long, and then we write another program. So we are getting good at certain movements, where there's always going to be some sort of like squat, deadlift, hinge, push, pull movement, sprinting activity in their programs, which if you were to look at their program, you'd be like, oh, like this kid might play basketball. They might play football because it's more of a general program because it's their first time doing a strength and conditioning program where we don't want to get super, super specific to the sport, to the position, to their demands at first. And then once they've developed that training age, that training experience, they get older, they are continuing to advance in their sport, we can really dial in a specific strength conditioning program to improve in, horizontal abduction, the take back phase of throwing. Like, we can get really specific and dive into those details in their training program when the time comes. But if you can't do a push up, then we're not diving into horizontal abduction.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what's unique. Even though we're championing your expertise in baseball, you train other sports, and I think you're also an expert in training these high school athletes that are going through all of these changes with a low training age. So I think you're a good spot for the high school athlete just looking to get into lifting to improve sports performance as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So at this point, what's your main motivation? Are you looking to really, well, you tell me before I put ideas in your head, but what's your main motivation as a strength coach at this point?
I mean, it's to change lives.
Yeah.
That's like what it is. I mean, I want to like make an impact on a player, to where they remember their 3 months, a year, 3 years, 4 years, 5, 6 years that they spent coming here to where they are a better person for it. They are fit, they are in shape, And, I've instilled in them a lifelong habit of exercise where they enjoy going to the gym. I don't care what gym they go to, as long as they're exercising, they're staying fit. And, I've made an impact in that person's life long term, besides just giving them 3 miles an hour in their fastball velocity.
Mm-hmm.
So, to me, that's what it's about. And that's the fun part, of this job, is to I had an athlete the other day reach out to me. It's like, Rob, I just wanted to shoot you a message. I'm back in the gym exercising, and I'm doing all the stuff I was doing with you. And without that, I would be lost. And it's funny to see others come to the gym and they have no clue what they're doing, so it's like, he's like, I just wanted to thank you for, all that you did for me over the years. That's a great thing to get. That's a day changer right there,
Yeah.
And then just getting that text or call that a player made it to the big leagues. That's awesome. A thank you. When a player signs a jersey and they give it to you, that's super rewarding to know that a player is thankful for what I did for them. And at the end of the day, all I really did was just, be yourself, care about people, obviously write kick-ass training programs, and get people better.
I think that's what's been, 7 years, 8 years we've been working together, is seeing even these high school kids. They've come up, they've either made the big leagues, they've come up, we've turned them on to wanting to become strength coaches or physical therapists, and now seeing them go from high school, and then now they're starting to, we've been here long enough, we're getting old, but seeing them start to graduate college and grad school and be, enter these positions of leadership and guiding even, the second generation down. And then even some of those people, they may decide to enter the workforce, the business world, but they're still texting us saying, just want to let you know how much you influenced me. And I'd be lost in the gym without your program. I'm still implementing this stuff. And even the strength coaches and interns that you've influenced and how the exercises you've shown them are ending up in the programs. And they're just, it's amazing to see now that we're starting to, we've been in the field long enough where we're seeing the influences that you've had. I'm sure that's super rewarding as you move along in your career.
Yeah. And I get interns every semester, and I've had interns for a very long time. And I really enjoy, an intern that does a really good job here, trying to get them a job.
Yeah.
I enjoy that part of the mentorship where I can email, call anybody in my network, and they're going to minimally take an interview on this person.
Right.
That's really a fun part for me, where now that I, have a lot of connections in the area, across the areas, and I've had lots of interns and a lot of great interns, some that I've hired here, but I can just pick up a phone call and be like, hey, Tommy, you need a strength coach? I got one. Here you go.
Right.
Boom, hired. Thanks, Rob. I don't know how I would have got that job without you. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't disagree with that at all. So what's next for you? You have all these teaching gigs, you have these consultant gigs, you're training full time. Anything you're thinking about down the horizon we want to let people know about?
No, I think I'm gonna, I think I'm excited about the teaching component of, my career now. So I hope to, continue my teaching journey, continue to impact, students in the classroom and in the gym through an internship program. I think that's kind of going to be a little bit of a, not focus for me, but, a next step, if you will, is just hey, let's continue to improve. Early in my career, it was all about being the best strength coach I could possibly be. And now it's all right, now I'm a teacher. Now I want to be the best teacher I could possibly be, So it's just making sure that I'm getting my message across to students every day, making sure that they're picking up what I'm putting down, they're doing well, they're going to apply the information. So I think that's not a focus, but my next step is let's be a great professor, just like or at least I consider myself a great strength coach and a great person.
Yeah, I think that it will be the next generation of strength coaches and movement specialists, I think, is going to be huge because they're relatively young professions. And I think you're having a huge impact on just furthering the career and making it more of a profession, more scientific, and measuring metrics with the stuff that you do. And I applaud you for that, to really furthering the profession. I'll be interested to see what happens in the next 10 years in our profession.
Oh yeah. I think there's I've like you have, John, been lots of great young people through these doors, that we've talked to, interacted with, that are going to go off and do great things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Some of they're already better than I am.
Yeah.
Jeez. But it's great. You just hope you can help guide people on the path, and they're going to make of it what they will, but it's great to see these people doing great stuff. So let's end with this. I have we do this with everybody, this final 5 questions, some rapid fire questions to give people more insight into who Rob Robena is as a person, because as much as you bench, we all know that you're mortal. And I think it'll be fun to give some of these kids some insight into who the real Rob Robena is.
Yeah. Fire away. I'm ready.
All right. You're walking into the gym for your first training session of the week. What's your walkout song?
Pretender by Foo Fighters.
All right. I think I know the answer to this question, and as anybody that follows you on social media, but what's your favorite exercise?
Bench press. Barbell bench press.
How many days a week do you bench press?
Pretty frequently. If it ends in Y, I'm bench pressing.
If you could eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh, pasta. Spaghetti.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
And then going off of that, what's your guilty pleasure?
Huge snack guy. Popcorn, snacks at night. Candy.
So sweet or salty?
Usually salt. Salty, like Skittles and popcorn and pretzels and all the salty stuff. So, big snacker.
Got it. And you're a huge Philadelphia guy. You're a huge 4 for 4 guy.
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing about the Philadelphia area?
There's a lot of things to do in the area. You can drive 15 minutes and you're in Philly. You can drive 15 minutes and you're in Jersey. So it's just it's a great spot to be. You're an hour from New York. You're an hour from Maryland. It's a good area. You get all the seasons. People are like, I want to move to Florida and I want it to be sunny all day long. I'm like, I don't really want that. I kind of like wearing sweatpants, and at the same time, I don't like wearing sweatpants all year round. So it's just it's a great spot to live. The sports are great. I'm passionate. If you can't tell already, I'm the same way about sports. Big Sixers fan, Phillies fan, Eagles fan. So just being around other individuals like myself, it's a good spot to be.
Love it. So if people want to get a hold of you, schedule a training session, or just follow what you're doing, where are the best places? How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, email is a good spot, just like robrobena@gmail.com. My Instagram, robrobena3. Shoot me a DM, let me know. I'm pretty active. I'd like to be more active on there. Yeah. But if anyone's interested, you know where to find me.
Absolutely. All right, Rob, I appreciate you for taking the time with us today. Guys, reach out to Rob. He's next in the field. He's doing some great stuff. He's always open, whether you're a professional, come in and shadow, or if someone looking for a training program. But appreciate everything you do, Rob, and thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, John, thanks for having me.